Well, I'm figuring now we got a problem. We could have another crime scene here. Later, she denied saying that, but that's exactly what she said. She didn't know.
Today, the lead homicide detective in the OJ Simpson murder case tells us what the jury never heard. Detective Tom Lange was the lead homicide investigator for the LAPD. On the night of June 12, 1994, he got a call about a double on the West Side. What he found would become the most watched criminal trial in American history.
First of all, Craig, thank you very much for having me, and I'm honored that you'd even asked me to be on here. Basically, what we were on call, excuse me, Phil and I, that particular night for any homicide that would occur within the city of Los Angeles. At the time, we had 18 geographical units and 18 geographical areas, but RHD would handle only high-profile cases that took more time, serial killing cases, not because we were any better, but we perhaps had a little more experience than most of the units, and we had the time and, more importantly, the resources to handle high-profile cases. I was woken about 3 a.m. by my boss, John Rogers, who simply said, we've got a double on the West Side. Here's the address. See you there, type of thing. Nothing is really discussed until we get there. It's just that you're rolling on these things. It's happened many times before. We'll find out what's going on once we get there, but there's not a lot of conversation that goes off initially. All he said was, we've got a double on the West Side, and here's the address. So I had the Bundy address. As I headed down there's no traffic, which was good. And I'm thinking a double on the West Side was kind of unusual because the crime rate in the Brentwood area, the West LA area, is somewhat low compared to the rest of the city. So it's kind of rare. So I really didn't know what was going on at the time, which is kind of the way we want to keep it initially. Once I got there, I noticed that the entire scene, the entire Bundy block had been blocked off by tape and by police cars on either side, north and south on Bundy. There's an alley behind the location that had also been secured. What we look for at a crime scene is we want to expand it. At a crime scene, obviously, the bodies are there and evidence is there. That's not the first thing we look at. We want to expand a crime scene out. It's just as far as we can go because what comes in goes out. And we don't know how far out this evidence could lead us. So they've done a really good job extending out the crime scene a couple of blocks in all areas. They had the rear alley secured also. When we got there, again, there was very few people. The Bundy was completely closed down. And I got there, I guess it was close to 4 o'clock, right around 4 a.m. And the first problem I saw that we had was it was Monday morning. Monday is a major thoroughfare between Wilshire Boulevard and going north for traffic. People going to work in the morning, and usually starts about 6:30 or 7. We're going to have a problem, regardless of this crime scene or who's there. We had to keep that street blocked off. So we had to take that into consideration. And once we got there, we did find out there was a male and a female. The female was told to be either OJ Simpson's current wife or a strange wife. We didn't know. We knew they were not living together at the time, so there was some marital discussion going on with that. The other young man had not been identified at the time. Generally, in a homicide scene, again, like I said earlier, the bodies are not the most important thing. Bodies are evidence of the crime scene. Everything is evidence. It sounds a little impersonal to say that, but the bodies are in fact evidence and it must be treated like evidence with obvious certain respects.
When you arrived on the scene at Nicole's home, the site of the 2 murder victims, were the bodies inside or outside the home?
Yeah, both the bodies were outside the home, near the front door.
Okay. And at that point, go on and let us know what your initial observations
Okay.
were and your theories about what might have happened.
Okay, well, theories come a little later. Initially, at a crime scene, you want to make sure it's secured as much as you can. Again, the biggest problem we foresaw was the fact that Bundy Drive would be opened up very shortly when the sun came up. Look, you lose the media. Once we found out that Simpson's wife or estranged wife was involved, this kind of threw a wrench into the works. End of the media was going to be showing up. We had a commander on the scene who made a decision as far as Simpson. Now, at this point, another officer had arrived with the name of Mark Fuhrman. I know you know who that is. He had worked, he's not a homicide cop. He was a detective that worked West LA. He was familiar with Simpson. He was familiar with a couple of radio calls that he had handled when OJ and Nicole had a couple of arguments. He had shown up, and so he knew where Rockingham was, where Simpson's home was. The commander made a decision because of everything we had going on and the notoriety of the case that Furman and his partner, Ron Phillips, and myself and my partner, Phil Van Adder, would take two cars and go up to Rockingham, which was only a couple miles away as the crow flies. Once we got there, we would contact OJ Simpson, explain to him what was going on, the problem that his wife or ex-wife was no longer living. We also had two children. OJ's kids were sleeping upstairs. By the time I arrived, they'd have been removed to West LA Station. They were not there, but they weren't our concern. He certainly should be notified that his children were there and they should pick them up or maybe report down to the station or whatever. So once we got there, we'd leave Furman and Phillips with Simpson. We'd tell him what was going on, and we would return and handle the crime scene investigation. This had to happen right away before the sun came up, before the traffic and everything else, because we'd have other problems that would come up. You want me to go on from here a little bit more?
I'm confused though, because my recollection, and again, this is 32 years ago, I may have forgotten some things, but I thought OJ, before any interview occurred with, or any communication really between you or any other members of the LA Police Department, had already gotten in a limo and gone to the airport and took off for Chicago. Are you saying that there was actually a conversation with him before he left the city?
No, I haven't gotten to that point. That's why I wonder if you want to continue on with what happened when we got to Rockingham.
Okay, so in other words, you've been to the murder scene.
Yeah.
You've done your initial observations, collected evidence, etc.
No.
And now you're going over to where OJ lived. Is that correct?
Okay. Yeah, no, we haven't done anything at the crime scene. A crime
Okay.
scene like this is no collection of evidence till a criminalist shows up, till everything gets noted, documented, photographed. A crime scene like this will take hours. But first things first type of thing, this commander had in mind other things to look at, the big picture. This is not a crime scene where we're going to be left alone to our own devices to handle. If it was, that's great. That's the best thing in the world to a homicide cop, that he's there all by himself with all of his people, prints, photographers, criminalists, got all the time in the world. Nobody's going to bother us. That wasn't this case, and we knew it was going to get a lot worse. That's why the four of us went up there, two to remain with Simpson, assuming he was there. We assumed he was there. And the other two would come back and continue with the crime scene. So getting back to Rockingham, the four of us arrived up there in two cars, right about 5:10 a.m., 5:15 in the morning. There's a phone right at the front of the house. There's an Ashford gate with a huge gate, and there's a Rockingham gate on the other side to the west of the entrance.
And we're now talking about the residence of OJ Simpson. Is that correct when you say
Correct.
Rockingham? Yeah.
360 Rockingham. Now, we went up there, like I said, it's about 2 miles as the crow flies. Took us less than 5 minutes to get up there, no traffic. The two cars pulled up, went up Rockingham, north of Rockingham. to the Rockingham gate, the main gate to the house, which was closed. No access there, so we went around the corner to the back gate, which was the Ashford gate. Now, the Ashford gate was very similar to the Rockingham gate, but they had a phone, an outside phone we could call inside the residence. So we stopped. The first thing we're going to do is get on the phone, see if we can get somebody inside. Hopefully Simpson is in there. We saw two cars in the driveway that were lights on. Obviously, to us at 5:15 in the morning, there were people home, probably sleeping, but we knew there was someone inside because of the cars and the lights on. We figured there probably was. Well, we got on the phone and tried to get in, and no one would answer once we did that. The Ashford gate was secured, but it wasn't locked. There's a wall connects on both sides of the gate. The wall is only like 5 feet high. I believe it's 15 inches thick. Very easy to get over the wall. Once we had a problem with the gate, we noticed that while it was not locked, the latch was inside. Fuhrman is standing by the wall. So he says, well, I can just jump over and open the gate. He says, yeah, go ahead and do that. So it took 2 seconds for Fuhrman to crawl over that 5-foot wall, get on the other side, and he opened the gate for us, and we went in. Now, there's some concern at this time about the lack of response from inside the house. Nobody's answering the phone. Again, there's cars in the driveway. There's lights on inside. The porch light is on. The four of us go to the front door, knock on the door, no response. Ring the bell, no response. Becoming more concerned at this point. They've just left the very bloody crime scene. The estranged wife, or the wife, still wife of OJ, and another man have been brutally slaughtered. This was not just a hit and run. I mean, somebody spent some time here. There was some kind of a fight from the initial observation. Now, bear in mind, at this time, we haven't done any deep investigation at all at the crime scene and know very little about what's there. I know nothing about the evidence yet. Again, the bodies are the last thing at a crime scene that a homicide investigator is really concerned with. Going back to the Rockingham house, nobody's answering the front, so we decided to go around the rear. We go around the rear and we approach, and there's a rear door going in the rear of the house. We knocked on the door, on the screen. That's not a screen, that's kind of a glass door on the outside. We knocked on it, no response. There are 3 bungalows unattached to the house down the side of the property line. Nobody's answering the house, so we went to the bungalows. The first bungalow, a young woman opens the door. It's Arnelle. It's OJ's daughter. Coincidence, at the same time, not coincidence, but at the same time, Fuhrman goes next door and knocks on another bungalow, and it's Kato Kaelin. About the same time, both of them come to the front doors. I'm talking to Arnelle. Fuhrman is next door talking to Kato Kaelin. My partner's behind me. So obviously we've woken both of them up. This is, like I said, right about now, 5:20 in the morning. And they don't know what's going on. All of a sudden there's 4 cops knocking on their doors at 5:20 in the morning. They're very concerned. Arnelle is wide-eyed and she's half asleep. And she says, what happened? Is everything okay? And what's going on? Well, we don't want to hit her with anything right away. I want to see if anybody's inside the house. And so I said, after we identified ourselves, of course, I said, listen, is your dad home?
Simpson wasn't home, but what Lange found would change everything.
Do you have a key to get in the house? Can I get in there? And she says, well, yes. And I said, what's going on? What happened? I said, I'll explain everything to you, but I'd just like to see if your dad's here for now. Okay, so she goes, she gets a key. Meanwhile, next door, Fuhrman is talking to Kato, and we're not aware of that conversation. Right now, all my attention is getting inside the house. We possibly have another crime scene. We've already, it's also been told there's a housekeeper who lives in there. So Arnelle goes and she starts opening the door and says, no, if you will, let me use the key myself. I'm going to just check out everything. And she's starting to panic. She's really getting upset, and you can't blame her. She really believes now in my mind that her dad is inside the house, as I do. Now, I'm expecting possibility of finding another crime scene. It's like we just left. I unlock the door and I go in, and the first thing I go to the housekeeper's bedroom. Nobody's there. Find out later the housekeeper had that Sunday night off. The bed is made, no problems. I walk around inside. I yell a couple of things. OJ, you here? No lights are on upstairs. I look around. Everything is fine. I walk back out. By this time, Kato has come out, and he's explained that Simpson, the night before, had got on a plane and was heading for Chicago. Great. Now there's no problem here. Fine. Um, he's in Chicago, so I finally have to tell that Arnelle that Nicole has been killed. I didn't say how, didn't say why, or anything else. She starts screaming. She's very upset. Kato's in shock. I said, we're going to leave these two detectives here with you, and I'm going back, and we're going to come back just as soon as we can. We have the kids in custody. They're at the police station. Sometime we're going to try to get hold of your dad and see if he can come and pick them up. We're going to get back and talk to you just as soon as we can. But for now, I'm going to ask you just to stay here with these detectives. They will talk to you later, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can make some notifications and talk to your dad. He's not a suspect at all. He's out of town, and I don't know the details about any of that except that he's not here. So clearly, it's not to indicate he's in kind of a suspect. In fact, he's a couple thousand miles away. So
It
that's the way we
strikes me,
approach
though,
this thing.
correct me if I'm wrong again, but it seems odd, perhaps, based on what I see on television and a little bit I know about law enforcement, that you would go to the home of the suspect or the victim's estranged or in this case divorced husband to let them know that their ex-wife has been murdered. I mean, wouldn't that normally happen much later, if at all? I mean, normally I would think when you see a murder victim, your first instinct wouldn't be to go to her ex-husband's house to interview him to see if he's okay or whatever.
Excellent point. To a degree, you're correct. Unless this is a high profile case, unless the media is involved, and unless you have a commander or a deputy chief at the scene who's interested in imagery, not necessarily your investigation. This is one of those things that uh, it kind of bugs you that you have to put up with it, but it's part of the deal. The brass is interested in imagery. I'm interested in investigating the murder. This is what I understood. Plus, we had the two children, very young kids. We had to consider that. This wasn't my choice. It was the choice of the brass to do this.
Okay.
Any high profile case, you're going to have that problem. We had the same problem when he was going to turn himself in or we were going to go out and arrest him. The same problem occurred because we don't like to do things with the media. We don't do perp walks, right? The brass wants the perp walks. They like the media in there. They got to impress the media. We don't.
Tell me what happened when you first interviewed OJ about the murders and your first conversation with him, and tell me when that occurred and what he said and what your thoughts were after the interview.
Okay, well, contacted him on the phone initially, so I am assuming you're talking after when he returned to L.A.?
Yes.
Okay. He returned to L.A. He said he was going to be back in the first flight that he could. And when he did return, he was picked up at the airport. We wanted to pick him up. He insisted that he would come by with his attorney or the friend by Rockingham. This point, I have to say this really quick. By the time he was on a plane coming back, while he wasn't necessarily a suspect, the glove had been found. Rockingham had been declared a crime scene. Again, you have to make decisions sometimes in a hurry, but you have to make decisions one way or the other. We're not going to sit and wait for him to come back. Once that glove was found, that's a crime scene. It was secured as such. And I made the decision that Fuhrman and his partner would remain there at the crime scene. Phil would go get a search warrant to search Rockingham. I would return to Bundy and start conducting that crime scene. We would await Simpson's arrival. Then we would hook up back at Parker Center where we would interview him once he got back.
So the glove was a key piece of evidence, obviously, and it became a very controversial piece of evidence. Tell us how the glove was found, when it was found, and
Okay. I'm still at the crime scene. All four of us are. As I said, I'm dealing with Arnelle. Fuhrman is talking to Kato. Kato makes a statement to the effect that he was in bed the night before when he heard a loud banging or something outside of his wall. He was in his bed, leaning against the outside wall. And there's an air conditioning unit right outside there. And he heard 3 thumps on the wall, and he couldn't understand. He thought there'd been an earthquake. He's telling us to Fuhrman when he's in his initial statements. Fuhrman gets this information, and later on, several minutes later, he says, "Okay, Kato, hang on here. We'll be back to see you a little bit." He goes outside and tells his partner what Kato had said, that there was these thumping noises and a little shaking behind his bed as he was talking to his girlfriend on the telephone. Fuhrman goes back around just to see where maybe the noises were coming from. And he walks back there. There's a narrow corridor behind the bungalows leading back to an area where there's just a lot of junk. There's an old busted wheelbarrow, and there's shovels, rusted shovels, and tires, and things where there's just junk back there. It's very dark back there. So Fuhrman enters, the gate is off, it's leaning against the bungalow. There's no lights, like I said, but he starts walking back there towards the air conditioning unit that juts out, blocking the passage to this junkyard in the back area. And then he looks and he looks on the ground as he's walking with a flashlight, and he sees the glove right in the middle of the walkway near the air conditioning unit. He looks at it, and he had been at the crime scene like an hour before I had. He was familiar with the evidence that was there. He was familiar with the fact that there was a left leather glove at the crime scene between the two bodies. They never saw a right glove while they were there. The 15 officers who were there before him never saw a right-handed glove at the crime scene. So he's looking and he sees this left-handed glove there. So, 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 is 8. Comes back out and he tells his partner what's going on. His partner finds me and he says, Fuhrman found the glove. He wants to show it to you. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, it looks like the left glove from Bundy. Now, his partner had been like an hour before I had also. They have more information than I do. I wasn't aware of any of this evidence until I found out about a glove. The right-hand glove. Here, there's a left-handed glove back over at the crime scene. So I go and I look at the glove, and they say, oh, it's a left-handed glove and everything else. So I'm looking at this, and Fuhrman and his partner are discussing. Everybody didn't understand why there was only a left-handed glove there. Now they tell me that there were bloody footwear impressions leaving the scene, and alongside the bloody footwear impressions, there was tailing of blood. Alongside and in conjunction with the direction of the footwear impressions, indicating perhaps whoever left the footwear impressions in blood, the source was also the left side of their body. It was making these tailing of the blood trail alongside the footwear impressions. They were corroborating one another, in other words. Bloody footwear impressions were walking this way. The blood was tailing in the same directions, adjacent to the footwear impressions.
All right, let me just ask. I mean, obviously, you've got a left-handed glove at the scene, full of blood. It obviously belonged to the murderer. And now you found what seemed to be maybe the matching glove at the residence of OJ Simpson. Right away, I mean, in your head, are you thinking, wow, maybe OJ murdered Nicole and Ron?
Yes and no. That's a little light goes on in the back of your mind. You got 100 other things you're doing. You don't jump to conclusions at all. Again, we got to go by what we see at the time when we see it and take action at that time.
Okay.
Right away, the action taken here would have to be, this is declared a crime scene, period. But you can't do anything without a warrant under those circumstances. That's when decisions had to be made. So that decision was find a DA. It was another problem we had initially, is we needed a district attorney. It's going to be a high-profile case. We knew this at the time. We got to get a DA involved early on. We had a little discussion, Phil and I did, about Marcia. This all of this stuff I put into a book, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because there's so many little things that happened at the same time. It's difficult for me to throw them all in here at the same time, explain it, but I'll try to get around a lot of these things. The decision was made to get our DA, contact her, it was Marcia Clark, get a warrant. Phil would return, and then they could conduct a crime scene investigation at Rockingham. Meanwhile, I would return to Bundy and do the same thing. And that's what happened, awaiting Simpson coming back.
At what point or ever was Kato Kaelin considered a suspect?
Kato Kaelin never really was a suspect. He was very cooperative. Could tell with his demeanor that I had a lot of experience talking to people at this point in my career.
Right.
And this is not any kind of a suspect in my mind, but of course, if there were any evidence to show otherwise, he had been treated as a suspect. He and Arnelle at this point are witnesses.
So it was just interesting,
and
and it was just interesting and coincidental then perhaps that the glove and the blood trail was along the exterior of his bungalow, and that may have been the explanation as to when he said he heard the 3 thumps against his wall was perhaps when that individual, OJ Simpson, was going through that passageway.
Yes and no. There was no blood trail back there, just the glove by itself. Fuhrman did the right thing in following up on what he heard from Kato Kaelin. It just makes sense. If
So
you
when
want to
you
be effective as a homicide cop, you got to be very nosy. Okay.
Yeah.
You got to ask questions. You got to follow up on every little thing. And this is what Fuhrman did, and he did it properly. I have a lot of problems with the way he handled a lot of things, but in this case, he did the right thing in following up.
Now I want to back up and clarify something, because we all know what you just told us about how OJ left and went to Chicago. In your investigative steps, you clearly found out, like through the FAA and the flight logs or whatever airline perhaps he flew. Did he fly private? Did he fly commercial? And when did he leave? And what was the purpose of going to Chicago, or at least what he said the purpose was? And how soon did he get back?
Okay, he flew commercial airlines. He'd been picked up by a limousine. Now, again, here's more important things that occurred when he was picked up. He was picked up a little after, just before 11 p.m., perhaps. I don't have the minutes in front of it. Well, maybe about 10:45 or something like this that evening. He was running almost a little late. The limo driver, a lot of things are happening here at the same time. You want me to go into all of these things? I can. It's Simpson is waiting for the limo. The limo shows up, coming up Rockingham with a driver named Alan Park. He later tells us he goes by the Rockingham gate because it seems to be closed. He turns around on the Ashford, goes to the Ashford gate, goes to the phone like we did, the same phone, and the night before, of course, and he tries to get someone inside. Nobody answers. He realizes that now it's about 20 to 11, and he looks up and he sees someone walking across the lawn towards the front door from the Rockingham gate. He says he can't really recognize it, but later on he says, I believe it's OJ Simpson. This person enters the front, goes upstairs. He gets back on the phone, and Simpson answers. Simpson says something to the effect, to just get out of the shower. I'll be down in a couple of minutes. You can come in the gate. And again, like I said, the gate wasn't locked. He says, okay, fine, I'll do that. So Alan Park pulls the limo in through the Ashford gate. At this point, a couple of minutes later, Kato comes out. And later, Simpson comes out with some bags. He got a golf clubs in one bag. He's got other smaller bags there. He's just going for an overnight trip to Chicago. It's one of the companies that he sponsors. They're having a golf tournament or something to that effect. He's going to play in the following day. He's going to be staying at a hotel in Chicago. The reservations already been made. Everything is planned. The limo will take him to the airport. He'll do his thing in Chicago, come back the next day.
So, Tom, but before you go on, I just want our audience to understand the timeline here. The murders occurred, approximately 9 p.m. that night, and now we're talking about OJ getting into a limo at his house at 11 p.m. Is that approximately correct?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to say, and there's a lot of discussion on this too. The murders occurred. The DA wants about 10:15 p.m. I don't believe that's true at all for other reasons we can get into. I'm going to say about 10:35.
Okay.
We went between Bundy and later on, part of the investigation, that we wanted to see how long it would take on a Sunday night about 10:30 to get from Bundy to Rockingham. We did it 3 different ways: slow, fast, red lights and siren, very slow, stopping for every lights and everything else. At no point did it take us more than 4.5 minutes on Sunday night at 10:35 to get from Bundy to Rockingham. 4.5 minutes max. This gives them plenty of time with the limo drivers. 10:40 belief that that's when he kind of pulled up and Simpson wasn't there. Simpson walking in and putting everything in the limo, getting in it, going to the airport. A lot of little things happened in here in the interim when they're loading up the car. One of them, Kato was trying to get all the luggage and the golf clubs in the limo because they might be running a little late. Kato goes to grab this small duffel bag, and Simpson says, "No, leave it alone. I'll take care of that." And which later on, Kato tells us about. He's a bit surprised about that. But they load everything up, and the limo takes off for the airport. Alan Park says they get to the airport. They get there about 11, a little after 11 o'clock. As they pull up, American Airlines, the second level at LAX, there's nobody around, there's no traffic. The limo pulls right up. Unbeknownst to them, there's a small vehicle, an MG convertible parked behind the limo. There's a man in it who's waiting for his wife, who happens to work at the American Airlines counter. She gets off at 11. She's running a little bit late. He's picking her up from work. The limo pulls in front of this fellow. He looks at the limo. There's nothing else around, no other traffic. And he sees OJ Simpson jump out. He's thinking to himself, "Oh, there's OJ Simpson." A red cap comes out. They start taking the luggage out. The golf club's out. And the Allen Park and the red cap take the golf clubs and everything else inside the terminal. And he turns around and he looks again. He's looking for his wife and he's looking back over. She's running a little late. He turns back around, and at the entrance, there are 2 trash containers, one on the left, one on the right. They're about 44 inches high. They're open on 4 ends. There's a flat top on both. He sees OJ Simpson standing next to the one on the left of the opening, and a small duffel bag that is described later by Kato Kaelin is on top of the container. Simpson is reaching into the bag, removing some kind of objects, and taking them out and pushing them into the trash container. Now, bear in mind, the bodies have not been found. Nobody's suspected of anything here. So the man waiting for his wife, and like a man by the name of Skip Junis. Mr. Junis is watching Simpson do this, and he's really thinking anything of it. He's just taking garbage, perhaps that he had in this bag, and putting in the trash container. Simpson sips up the bag after, walks inside. They're gone.
I think a key piece of evidence that was missing to convict OJ Simpson of the crime was with a stabbing, you would expect a lot of blood on the victims, but also a lot of blood on the murderer. And no bloody clothes were ever found to help convict OJ Simpson. And so what you've just described is a theory that OJ Simpson took his bloody clothes, put them in that briefcase or that duffel bag, and then put them in a trash can at LAX. And from what I remember reading, that the duffel bag was then thrown away when he got to Chicago in another trash can. And I don't even know if that evidence came out at the trial. Is that? But that's a key piece of evidence, correct?
It is. There's 3 typewritten pages of evidence that was never used. This is another issue we can get into. However, that was one of them. Yes, that's very important.
Yeah.
Not just the bloody clothes, but the shoes, whatever, the door lollies were never found. The murder weapon was never found. What did he put in the trash container?
Did you ever find out what he put in the trash can at LAX?
We never did, because I didn't find out about it for 9 months. Nine months during trial. Mr. Jonas, after the bodies were discovered and the news got a hold of this, it went out over at all the news stations. Skip Jonas heard them mentioning that the murders occurred about 9:40 or so, and OJ Simpson may or may not be a suspect. Well, he's sick at 9:40. I saw him at the airport about 11 or so, and he couldn't have done it. So he calls the defense. The defense says, "Thank you very much. We'll get right back to you." They never did. Skip Judas 9 months later is watching the trial on TV. He sees all this going down. He calls me on the phone. "I'm at lunch. I just left the trial." I said, "Where are you now?" He says, "Well, I'm at work. Can you get over back to the airport where you saw this and meet us there now?" He says, "Okay." So he goes back there. I grab a photographer, my partner. We run out there. He gives us a walkthrough. There's no video cameras or anything else. Containers are still there. 9 months later, what are we going to find? There's 3 pickups a day going to 2 common dumps. No way are ever going to find anything that was taken there. This should have been used in trial. It never was.
The statement about the duffel bag ended up being tossed in Chicago. How was that found out?
I don't know. I never heard that, because we never found the bag. We went back to Chicago, got other evidence, believe it or not, that also wasn't used. Broken drinking glasses. That's another story. We went back there 2 days later. I went back there with Bill Hodgman, the DA, and another detective. We searched the grounds with the Chicago PD. They were very cooperative. They had secured the hotel room where Simpson was staying. I found broken glass and blood in there. Booked all that. That stuff was never used. There was a reason that I booked that we can get into because of the cut finger. That was one of the alibis he gave. He gave 3 alibis. It was staged.
"9 months of evidence. None of it would ever reach the jury. When O.J. Simpson returned from Chicago, Tom Lange sat across from him and knew in 30 seconds what they were dealing with. Join us for part 2 as we continue our interview to understand what happened.